man and machine become one, only then is true power realized. Now is the time to feel the might of that power. We will barbecue our enemies with no mercy. We will fry their installations with a crapload of truly nasty weapons. There will be 24 levels of extreme firepower and brute military force. There will be mass destruction. Shoot first. Ask, just shoot.
Mass Destruction is a game that by all accounts is a perfect example of a product that delivers exactly what it says on the cover. However, depending on what type of gamer you are, that can be seen as either a good thing or a bad thing. Developed by NMS Software in 1997 for the PlayStation, Sega Saturn and PC, Mass Destruction is a semi-overhead tank-based action game which, as the title suggests, has a heavy emphasis on destructible environments. At the start of a game, you get a selection of 3 classes of tanks to choose from. However, there's not much difference between the 3 aside from how fast they go and how much damage they can take. The Cheetah is faster but has weaker armor, the Cobra is stronger but much slower in the speed department, and the Viper is the one that balances it all out. The differences are barely noticeable when you play the game, but generally I always go for the middle ground with the Viper because I'd rather have something that moves at a reasonable pace but also takes a fair amount of damage. The game itself is made up of 5 campaigns, each consisting of multiple stages set within a variety of environments, such as a desert, jungle, city, and a snowy wilderness. Mission objectives include destroying a set amount of primary and secondary targets within the stage, rescuing hostages before they get executed by their captors, destroying everything but the main reactor in a nuclear power plant, and pursuing an enemy convoy before it escapes the battlefield. The tanks are primarily armed with basic shells and machine gun weapons, but within the stages there's a good selection of weapons the player can collect, like mines, heavy-duty shells, and my personal favourite, the flamethrower. The controls for the game are pretty solid overall. The tanks are very responsive, and while the game's method of moving them by pressing up on the D-pad to go forward and down to go in reverse may seem a bit confusing during certain maneuvers, it's something that doesn't take too long to adjust to. As an extra layer to the control scheme, the ability to control your tank's turret with the L and R buttons also works incredibly well, whether you're firing on the move or in a stationary position. When you've got the flamethrower equipped, it's actually a very fun mechanic to use. The way the game handles its title feature, however, is ultimately what sells it above everything else. There's no shortage to the amount of things within the levels players can take a shell to, and the satisfaction of such destruction is only enhanced even more thanks to the game's excellent presentation. The game's explosions have a very pronounced fiery effect to them which looks spectacular, and the additional graphical effects like the crumbling debris really help drive home how much devastation the player has at their fingertips. I also highly appreciate some of the smaller details found in the game, like the way enemy soldiers become ablaze when you fire at them, the splashes in the water caused by flying debris, and even some nice looking water reflections. The sound effects are also one of the game's great highlights. The explosions have a very crunchy sound to them, which I feel matches the effects very appropriately, and the game never fails to give me a sick sense of satisfaction with the way soldiers scream when you kill or set them on fire. The simplicity in Mass Destruction's gameplay is what I feel makes it most enjoyable, but in all honesty, I also think its simplicity also acts as the game's one major disadvantage. Truth be told, there's not too much depth to the game at all. You're just blowing stuff up before something blows you up. There's the odd hostage mission, sure, but generally the mission objectives consist mostly of destroying X amount of targets and finding the helicopter marker to finish the stage. If you're someone who's looking for a game with a little more depth and variety, you might be put off by this. The game's controls and handling of the destruction still make it a very entertaining game, but after an hour or two, you really start to feel its monotony, so it's a game that's better suited for short bursts of play. The game is also fairly easy. There weren't too many times I died during a mission, and there are armor pickups littered all over the stages, so unless you just stand around in one place for too long, it's incredibly rare for you to lose all your health. I recommend choosing a higher difficulty setting and maybe the weaker cheetah tank if you're looking for a greater challenge. One other gripe I have with the game, which is more of a disappointment to me than anything else, is that the game lacks any sort of two-player modes. I honestly don't see why NMS overlooked such a feature considering the popularity similar games like Combat enjoyed for their multiplayer options. If it just wouldn't have worked as a two-player deathmatch game, I could have definitely seen the game working as a co-op title, and it could have helped give the game a little more in terms of content and replay value. Unfortunately, the game just offers neither of those two options. In conclusion, Mass Destruction doesn't offer the deepest of gameplay experiences, but at the end of the day, it certainly didn't set out to do that. Its primary focus as a game was to be both an easy to pick up and play action title, and a game which offers exactly what it promises on the cover: Mass Destruction. And as you can hopefully agree with me looking at the gameplay footage throughout this review, it certainly delivers. Whether you like explosions, tank-based action games, or just old school action games in general, Mass Destruction comes highly recommended. Just be sure not to play it for too long at any given time. So from me, until we meet again, this is Thomas saying good night, goodbye, and God bless.